Great. All right. So the agenda for today, or at least my plan, and you're welcome to to help me adjust it and give me ideas, is to go through using Rapise to test a web application, a desktop application, and a mobile app on an Android tablet, and also to show you generally how you can use Rapise to do automated testing and some of the functionality and features that it has. And please, let me know throughout if there's any questions or anything you'd like me to go back over or in more detail. So the first thing is, this is Rapise. This is the latest version. It came out yesterday. It has a few new features over the one that was available. Particularly has some tools for doing web testing. It has a web spy, which I'll show you for viewing a web page and doing queries against it to find objects. And what we'll be doing first of all is testing this simple application. It's a little web application that we have that's on our website. It's publicly accessible, so you can try it out yourself. And basically, it will let you log in. You can go into the website, and it's meant to be like a library. You can go in, look at the list of books, edit the books, create a new book. Same thing with authors. And that's pretty much it. It's a very simple create, update type of website. Also, we've got a desktop application I can show you, and also a mobile application. But first of all, just to start off, Rapise basically is an application you use to write the tests. And once you write the tests, you can then publish them into SpiraTeam or SpiraTest, which is our test management system. And so that way, once they're published into SpiraTest, they will then appear in a particular project. For example, this is our demo project we'll be using. Is there a question? Someone raise the question? So someone raised their hand with a question. Is there? Okay. I'll keep going. So SpiraTeam is where everything we're save is going to get stored. So when you go to SpiraTeam, you'll be able to see our test cases under the testing section right here. And that's where you can then schedule them and deploy them on different test environments. So Rapise is basically the test editing tool, and basically you can then publish it to SpiraTeam, and then it can be deployed onto the different machines for testing. Someone mentioned that they can't hear what I'm saying. I think that person, Semi, needs to connect to the audio. They've only connected to the visual portion. There's an option in WebEx to actually connect. So you click on the audio button. So I'm just sending a message to connect to the audio. Hopefully everyone else can hear me okay. Let me know if not. So as I mentioned, Rapise is basically the editing tool. And what we'll do is we'll be writing our tests in Rapise, publishing them to SpiraTeam, and then they can be deployed onto different machines to run those same tests. So that way you can run the same tests on different environments. So the first thing we'll do to get going is create a new test from scratch. So you can see how you would do that. So we go into File, we go to Create New Test. And what it's going to do is connect to SpiraTeam, and we choose which folder to put it in. We'll use our demo project. And we then choose where to store that. And we can either create a new folder of tests, or we can just put it into our main folder. I'm just going to put it into our existing folder of automated tests. And we'll call it a web test. That's fine. So this is our web test. Okay? So that creates our new test case. It's going to create that in SpiraTest at the same time. And we can now choose the methodology. We want basic manual. If this was a mobile test, we would actually use the mobile methodology, that one. But for a desktop application or a web application, we always use basic. That's important. If you use mobile, it's going to show you the mobile profile, which you then need to configure for mobile testing. Once that's done, you then click the button. And now we've got a new test ready to go. And it takes you to this home page. This is the home page of the test. It shows you the SpiraTest project that it's a member of, the test case, and it shows you a link to the two main files you'll typically work with. One is the main script file. That's where it records all of our interactions. This is the main test entry point. When you actually play the test, it's going to call this starting function. There's also the user file right here. This is a file where you can put any user functions. And when you write functions in here, it's written in JavaScript. They're going to appear under the user functions, and you can then drag and drop them into the test project. Okay, so now that we've done that, the first thing we want to do is look at our object tree. This is where we're going to record anything we interact with. So as we start to do testing, you're going to see objects appear in this tree view called the object tree. By default, there are some global objects in there. So depending on what testing you're doing, if you're using, for example, a mobile device, you might want to use like the Android object to do things like shaking the phone, simulating certain global events. If it's a web application, there are specific web events here, like setting the starting URL, things like that. So these are basically global utilities that are always available. But then as we begin the testing, it's going to actually add to this list with things that we interact with. So going back to our web page, we're going to record the login sequence and then clicking on the list and coming back to it. So we'll do a very simple test first of all. So what I do is I choose what's called record and learn. And what it does is it's going to look at the applications running on my machine, and it's going to then let me record a test against them. And this is where you could choose either a desktop application. So I could choose, for example, a phone application I've got for voice over IP. If I had Windows Explorer, I could test that. I could test Outlook, Microsoft Calculator, any of those applications I can test. Or if it's a web application, I'll choose the appropriate browser. And what it's doing behind the scenes is underneath we have all these libraries. These libraries tell Rapise what kind of test it is, and these are the different technologies we have available for testing. And so most of the time you don't need to worry about this. Rapise will automatically select the right library. But behind the scenes, what it does is it looks at what the application you're testing. Like if I click on Internet Explorer, it's going to know that is using the iExplore process name, and it knows to therefore use the Internet Explorer DOM library, which understands the elements in a web page. If this was a different type of application, it would automatically choose a different library. So it generally will be able to pick the right library, but you can override the selection in this option down here if you want. So we'll just choose automatic and hit select, and that will bring up the recorder. This is the recording dialog. And as I start to click through the application, you're going to see events start to appear here. So I'll choose login. I should record that right here. Do that again. Should hit login. Come on. Yeah. Try one more time. Yeah, that's good. And that should then let me log in, and there we go. And then I'll log into the application. Come on. Let me just go and try again. Because then try again. Sorry, my browser is weird. So we go. Okay. One of the things with automated testing is it is sensitive to the environment, and so I was just doing something else before, so let me just clean that up and start again. There we go. So there we go. That's what it should do. So sometimes if you've been using the browser to do something specific like launching WebEx, what it can do is it can leave the process in a weird state. So if ever you get a situation like that, just close the browser and start again. Because sometimes you can get some interesting things where it's testing more than you think it's testing, because something's still running in the browser. So what we'll do now is we've got the login right here, which is what I just did, and now I enter the username and password. So librarian and librarian. And as I do that, it's going to wait for you to finish typing, and we'll record the event. So we type in box. Librarian, like that. And hold on a minute. All right. I had this problem last time, so what I did this time is I've actually got a virtual machine ready. So I'll just do that. I've got a clean machine. So we'll do it on that instead. So you should be able to see the computer okay. So what we'll do, just create a new test. Please in the project, automated test. Okay, I'll create it. Choose manual. So let's do that again. So record and learn on this machine, and choose select. Log in. Librarian. And librarian here. And now you can see it's recorded those events. So I switched to the virtual machine because my machine's running the WebEx, which sometimes can interfere with it. So as you can see, it's click the login, the username and password is all stored. So now what I'll do is click on the book management, and that's going to bring up the list of books. And I can then create a new book, for example. So let's call it my new book. And I'll choose the author, Charles Dickens. And you can see here it's recorded what I've been doing. Hit insert, and there you go. So now it's recorded the script. And the last thing I might want to do is verify that got added correctly. So I can do Control and 1. These options down here, there's two additional options. Obviously, I've been clicking on things and it's recording what I'm doing. There's also a verify option. So I can hover the mouse over here, and I do Control and 1, verify. And I can now choose what item I want to verify. The bitmap, which will give you the screenshot of that item. If I want to capture an attribute like the height, or the type of object it is, if it's enabled, or if it's just a text, I'll choose in the text, my new book 1, hit OK, and then I'm just going to log out, and then hit finish. And inside Rapise, what it's done is it's recorded two things. First, it's recorded here all my interactions. First is the login steps. Then I clicked on the book management screen. I then created a book. And then after I created the book, I verified the information, and then I logged out. And as well as the script that it recorded, it also recorded, this is really more important, it recorded all the objects. So these are the window names you'll see here. And under each window name, if you expand it, you'll see the different options. The links I clicked, the buttons. And these are actually virtual objects. They correspond to a particular HTML element on the page. They can be either individual HTML elements, or if it's something like a jQuery date control or other element, we actually have technology built into Rapise that it will actually identify those objects as a complete control, like a calendar, and it will actually understand what those are. So we've built custom libraries that basically support different JavaScript frameworks so they can understand the objects directly. Now, the other thing is that when you click on an object, one of the most important things is there's a name, which you see here. That's the name that's used within Rapise, but more important than that is the XPath. This XPath is actually what we're learning. It's the actual location of that object in the web page. And so when you record your script, what you're doing is you're basically using these virtual objects that are pointers to these items in the actual web page. So this is looking for an input tag, a text box with a particular identifying name. So if you change your web page, you can change these object definitions, and you can then adjust this. You can leave your script as is, but just change the object definitions. So that way, if you have, for example, the test person writing the test case, that person doesn't necessarily have to know all these objects. The developer who built the web page could record the script and learn all the objects, and then let the tester use those. And you can drag and drop from this grid directly into the test script. So for example, if I wanted to click on something, I could simply go to it. So let's say it's the book management link. I can expand it, and I can then drag its do action directly into this. Or if I want to do a right click or a double click, I can do the same thing. Just drag it right here. And just to show you how this works, I'll play it back. If you go back to this here, I can simply go back to Rapise and close the browser. And if I hit play, it should hopefully launch the browser and play it back. And there you go. So it went through correctly, and it did report a failure. Sometimes what will happen is that if an object's not available on the screen, it can sometimes give you this message, and then sometimes what you have to do is have like a sleep command. So when you click on a link, Rapise is going to run through a certain speed, and you may find that it doesn't do something quickly enough. And so what you can do is do global.do sleep, like that, or you can wait for the object to be ready. Do wait for object right here. The other thing you can do, if you have an application that's very slow and every step's taking too long and Rapise is running ahead too fast, Rapise has options where you can configure. You can configure several things. For example, you can configure the lookup attempt. That's how many milliseconds do we wait to find something, and also how many times do we retry. And then also how long do we wait between each of these statements. So right now we're waiting 1 second between operations, and we're also looking at we're trying 300 milliseconds for it to be available, and we tried 5 times. So we could change these as well. And that, if you notice, that did play it back in Internet Explorer, but Rapise can do cross-browser very easily. So all you want to do, if you want to play back this exact same test in a different browser, you just go to the settings, and you change the test parameters, and the one you'll change will be the browser. So we choose it to Firefox, and hit play, and now it should play back in Firefox, hopefully. It's going to create Firefox. So playback in Firefox is exactly the same. So that's a very simple web test. Now, one of the things you might want to do is, we had that failure, we might want to put a breakpoint. So one of the things that Rapise has is a built-in debugger. So I can go back into the code and put this red circle by clicking on it. When you click on the left-hand margin, what it does is it puts a breakpoint right here. And then what I can do is change the debugging mode. So I put on Run Internal Debugger. And now when I hit play, I'll change it back to, Firefox is fine. So I'll just close that tab off and hit play. It will now go through it, and when it gets to that point, it will stop, like that. So it stops the debugger right here. And you can now use the variables function to see the variables in the code. And so if you're trying to wait to verify some information, you can check what's going on. You can watch different variables. So for example, we can go to the code here. And if you want to see what's going on, you can expand the appropriate variable. Test is passed. See the values in it. So that way, if you're trying to debug why something is failing or passing that you didn't expect, you can actually use that. So one thing we would want to do, if this is for real, I stop the debugger, is you might want to go back to your test, and you might want to get the current name of that value, of that drop-down list. So something like var current author equals, and you go back to your object tree, and you'll do the drop-down list, which is right here. And actually, we'll just expand that. We want to get the current value. We'll drag that over here, like that. And now when we hit the breakpoint, we'll look at that value and see what it is. So we can just hit play one more time. Oh, actually, I need to restart my test, so hold on. Let me stop a second because the test isn't ready. I need to reset the browser. Okay. Now try it again. So you can use the debugger to view information as it's playing back. So test. Yeah, that's right. Run that up. Come on. Oh, there we go. I'm too quick. Let me do that again. So let's go back. Yes. I closed the browser. So let's do it properly. There you go. Okay, and now if you look over here, the current author is set to 1, which is the value of the drop-down. So actually, I really want to get the text. So I would now add more code to it to actually do further debugging. So with the built-in debugger, what you can do is you can get any of the values you want, and then interactively author name. Like that. Get text. So that way you can get the different values, both of the author's ID, which is 1, and if I play it back, it's going to get me, it says undefined. When I replay, it's going to get me the name. So there is the built-in debugger. Okay, so now we've basically got our very simple test going. I'll turn off the debugger. The other thing we can do in Rapise is use the power of the IDE to make the test more reusable. So if we go back to our test, we've got this big long test script here. What would be nice if it was a bit more modular and easier to adapt, so we could reuse portions of it. So if we go back to our home page, if you remember we had the user file. This is the main test file here. This is the user file. So if I click on that, I can write custom functions in here, and when I write them, they're going to become available right here as if it was an object. So for example, let's say I want to take my login steps, I want to use those separately. So I can write function login, and what I can do is go back to my test script, and I'll extract all the login steps, which is right here, and I'll put those into my user file as a custom function. So I've now created a custom function which logs in, sets the username and password, and I'll replace these texts with variables, like that. And now if I go back to here, I can go to my user tree and just refresh it. You'll now see under user function there's a login function. So I can just go and drag this up to here, and I'll replace the nulls with the password, login and password. So it was librarian. Yeah, okay, I'll get rid of, I don't need these anymore, so I'll just comment those out. So now if I play it back, it will do the same thing, but it's now calling my function instead of having it all hard-coded into my script. Oops, let me log out first. Now it's going to play it back. Yeah, one thing to bear in mind is sometimes when the application, if it hasn't logged out properly, like last time I didn't log out, so it isn't ready, it's usually best to make sure that the application is at the same starting point. So one of the things we often do is add code at the end of the test to make sure that it's back at the starting point, like logging out or closing the browser. So let me just do that. Run it again. There you go. Otherwise, it looks for like the login button and it can't find it because it was already logged in. Okay, so there you go. So it's done through it. And if you notice now, it's called my login function. So it works exactly the same way, but now I've got my login function here and my code here. And you can do the same thing with the logout. And also for editing the book, you could write a function to actually edit the book and have that as a separate function. Now the other thing we have in Rapise is the web spy. And so I'm just going to switch this back to IE. 1 second. And the web spy works in all the different browsers, so we'll start with using Internet Explorer. So what you do is you go back to settings. I'm just going to put it back to Internet Explorer. I have it up right here. And the web spy is a new tool we added in the latest version. And what this does is it lets you inspect the page. So for example, if I click on spy, choose the browser, the spy tool right here will let you view the web page and actually see everything inside of it. Because in many cases, like in a web page, you have lots of objects and they're nested within other objects, and you want to be able to see what's actually on the page. So here's the actual page for this page here. And actually what I really am interested in is not so much this page, but I really want to look at that book list page. Because one of the hard things with a web application is if I start clicking on buttons, I'm going to be recording events against specific items, but their position on the grid may change. So on this list, if I want to edit a book, if I click on this link or record that object, I'm going to record the fact that it was the 6th row down on the grid, but that may change if you add new books. So what I really want to do is be able to look at this page and see if there's any way I can find things and locate things that will not change when the web page loads with new data to make it more reliable. So what I'm going to do is use the Web Spy to get a snapshot of this page. And what it's doing is going to the web page, it's getting all of the objects on the page and rendering it in here. So I can now expand it, and there's the body, the form, there's a page with a header and a footer. And so you can see the entire page laid out here. And there's our grid of books right here. And you'll notice that when I click on things, it actually highlights them, because I have highlighting mode turned on. And I can always right-click on something and go Highlight, and you'll see it highlighted here. So that's very handy, especially if you can't see something and you're not sure where it corresponds, like what's this header, I can click on it and highlight it right there. Like this. But you can also do the reverse as well, because sometimes this tree view can be very large, and let's say I want to find something here. I can do the reverse. I can do Control and T to actually find it. So if I want to find the book Amsterdam, I can go back here and do Control and T. Control and T. And wait for the red box to highlight. And do Control and T again. And there it's found it for you. So that's much easier than navigating through this manually. You can just visually click on something and find it. Now once you've found something, like if I want to find this cell, I can now learn it as an object. And I can either learn it using XPath or CSS. It supports both methodologies. XPath is usually more reliable for getting objects, but sometimes CSS can be shorter and more compact. So we'll just try CSS, and I can then learn it. And when I hit Learn, it's going to appear right here. Now you may want to know, what is it actually learning? Well, it's creating an object in Rapise, and it's using this information right here. This is the object. It's a TD tag. Its inner text is Amsterdam. And then if you look at these selectors are actually how we find the object in Rapise. So this first one is the CSS selector. That's how you could find that cell using CSS. And this second one is how we can find it using XPath. And what we do is it's finding the form on the page. It's finding a table with this unique name, the book grid. And it finds the body of the table. It's looking for the fourth row and the second cell. And that's good, but it's not great, because it means if we load new data into this grid, the object I've learned here is unfortunately going to be different. So though we're looking for this one book called Amsterdam, if we add another book to the grid and it appears between these two, like it's got a different title, it's going to move this down. And so that way, it's not a very reliable test. And one of the things in automated testing is how to make the test as reliable as possible, so that the next time you play it back, it's going to continue to work. So although that might be useful to learn, a better idea would be to find the book by the row guaranteed that name. So let's say I want to find this edit link right here, and I want to find that based on a specific entry. I can use this new tool at the top that lets me actually query the web page. So let me move this out of the way. What I can do is I can say, well, I know that this table name is good, so let me get the table name. So I'll get that and put it into this is my testing tool. So I can go in here, and in fact, I don't even need this. I know this table is unique. So I can go in here like that, and I can say test, and it will find it. So now, right here. So it's found my table. I want to find in that table, I want to find any row that has a table that has the content Amsterdam. So I test that, and it found me a cell, and it shows it right here, this one. So I know I found the right one, but I don't want to click on the cell. I want to click on the edit link. So I need to go up one level back to the row. That will find me the row, and then I want to find the cell that has the edit link, which is 5th cell. Okay. And inside this cell is a link called Book Edit, which is handy because that's what I want. And there's the link. And you can see in this element viewer right here, I can see that's my hyperlink. It goes to Book Edit, and it goes to the book I want, which is the Amsterdam book. Now this is a really good link to learn, because now I know this is going to work every time. So I can now learn this by hitting the Learn button. And that's my edit link. And if I hit Finish, if I go back to Rapise, you'll see what I have there. And the book management window is I have my edit link and I have my Amsterdam. And if I look at them, one points to that fourth row, second cell, but this new one I learned using the spy tool is much better. It's now pointing to that. Now the other thing you can do is, suppose I want to find a whole bunch of books by name. I don't want to, and instead of learning all those different objects, the other thing I can do is I can actually learn the table. So let me go back to Spy. And I can go in here, and once it's finished, I can actually learn the table, and then I can find any book that I want and click on it. And I'll show you how you do that. So I'll do Control, and so I'll just go into here, expand it. There's the page, there's the main section, there's the table. So I'm going to learn that. That's my table. Learn that. Table. Hit Finish. Go back to Rapise. So now I've got my table. It's right here. So what I can do is, let's say I want to click on the link. So I'm going to comment out the code that creates the book that we were doing before, and I now want to click on a book. So there's two ways I can do that. One is I can simply get my link that I learned, the edit link. That will click on Amsterdam for me. That's good if I just want to click on one book, but if I really want to click on different ones, instead what I can do is I can drag the table. This is the table itself over here, and there's actually a function called do XPath query or CSS query right here, like that. And what I can do now is I can go to Amsterdam. I can use the edit. I can use the same query as here, but now I'm learning the book. So this last part I can actually just do in code like this. And the reason I do that is I can now make this a generic function that could then find any book. So I'd replace Amsterdam with a variable. So maybe I want to find a different book. I want to find Saturday. So I can now do like that. Like that. So what I'm doing is I've learned the parent object, which is the table, and now I'm going to dynamically find the book element under it. And I can then use that, click on that. It returns back an array, so I just get the first object, and then do click. So that will click on Saturday. So those are two different ways you can work with dynamic data. If you have a situation where you just want to find one object, you can learn the object using the XPath that you know will find it, or you can just learn the parent object, like in this case the table itself, and then you can dynamically query for the child elements. The advantage of this method is it's much easier for a tester. They don't have to have any code like this, and it encapsulates all of the functionality into the object. But sometimes if you want to do a lot of different queries, it's easier to just learn the parent object like this, and then add a little bit of code at the end. And so depending on how you wish to construct your tests, you've got those different options. Any questions on the web testing, on the spy tool, the debugging, learning, and recording? No questions. Okay. So what we can do is we can try playing this back. And because this is going to click on one book, that's going to click on the other, I need to basically, in between the two, get back to the list of books so it works. So I'll just cut and paste that from up here. This clicks on the main menu entry right here, and we'll take you back to the list. So I'm just going to insert that between the two. Okay. And right. And since I'm not adding the book, I'm going to comment that as well. So now if I hit play, it's going to log in. Oh, I was already logged in, so let me log out. So let me wait for it to finish. One of the things is if you leave the browser in a different state than it expected, it won't work because it won't find the objects. So it's going to fail and tell me that it couldn't find the login button because it was already logged in. So if this is a real test, one of the things we might want to do is right at the beginning, we could add code at the beginning to see if I'm logged in already, don't bother trying to log in again and just continue to work. Because what it did is it actually logged me out. But that's okay. So now we're logged out. Yeah, we're logged out. Now it should work. Let's try it again. There we go. So click on the two edit buttons. Oh wait, I guess it's my fault. I still have the create link. So I tried to create. So it failed that time because it had warned me that I was trying to click on the edit button that didn't exist because I had tried to create the book. So I just need to comment these two lines out as well. My mistake. So let's try it one more time. So it's going to log in. And this time it won't click on the create book link. What it will do is click on the edit link for Sat for Amsterdam, go back, click on the edit link for Saturday, and go back. That's what it does. And there you go. So that's a very simple example now using dynamic content querying. Okay, so that's some simple examples of web testing. The next thing will be to do is mobile testing. So for mobile testing, actually before I do it, let me just save my test. So I should always save what I'm doing. So to save it, it always saves locally all the time, but I want to also save it now into SpiraTeam, so it's version controlled and other members of my team can access it. So I do save to Spira, and what it will do is it will upload my tests back to Spira. Tell me where it's creating it. It's going to upload all these different files. Oops. Yeah, and you can usually just take what it accepts. It uploads the main test script file, the object's definition, and the user functions. And it doesn't upload any reports or temporary files. That's okay. Okay. And if you go back, and once it's done, if you go back into Rapise to SpiraTeam, you'll see our new test is there. Actually, you know what? I can access on my machine since I'm already logged in. Let me just close the VM and go back. My machine is already logged in. And I go to tests. We should have our Tesla demo test and test demo 2. This is the one I was using. And there you'll see that's the automation script. So my Rapise script is stored in SpiraTeam. All the documents are stored there. So if I click on it, I can actually see the documents and all the files that are right here. And every time I create a new version and save it to SpiraTeam, it's going to update the version number. And you can view all the different versions in SpiraTeam, and you can update them and revert back. So that way, there's a full version control system built right into the tools. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is mobile testing. For mobile testing, we use a tool called Appium, and this acts as the gateway to the device. And if you're going to use a device on a PC, it's an Android device only, but we can also connect to a remote Mac server that will have all the different devices if you're using Apple devices. So a Windows server can host Android devices, and a Mac can host both Android and iOS, and Rapise can connect to both. So in this case, I'm going to create a new test, and this will be under this folder is fine. Manual scripting. In this case, actually, I want mobile. Oh, actually, I'm going to create a test first. So new test. New test name will be mobile test 1, and I want mobile. That's fine. And in this case, I'm going to choose my mobile profile. The mobile profile tells basically the stored definition and it comes with several, but you can add your own. It basically tells it what device you're testing and where it can be found, on which Appium server you're connecting to. And to find out all of them profiles, you go to Options, Tools, Mobile Settings, and these are the different profiles. And we're using the Android Nexus 7. And that's basically going to store, this is where it tells it which application to deploy. So I'm deploying our test Android application, which is an Android APK file, and I'm deploying it onto this machine. It's a Nexus 7 tablet, Android, that's the machine's physical ID. If you're using a simulated machine, you don't need the ID, but you do need the version of Android and the device name, and that's how it knows which one to connect to. And the last thing you'll do is make sure you have this connection here. This is the connection to the Appium server. This machine is using Appium on the local machine. If it was a remote Appium server, you'd have the name here. So for example, if I was going to test an iPhone, it would connect to our, in this case, it's the Macintosh in our office, and that is the URL or IP address, and we connect to that instance there. But I'm going to use the Nexus 7 because it's right next to me, and I can test the connections up. Yep, we're connected to Appium, okay, it's fine, okay. And now we do the same thing. It's exactly the same as before. We have our user file where our functions are, and we have our main test file right here. The difference is now the library it's using is the mobile library rather than the browser library. And the other thing I will typically want to do is make sure I can connect to it. So I choose the spy tool again. Whereas before I was using the web spy, now I'm going to use the mobile spy. So I hit spy. It's fine. Hit connect. And on my tablet, it should pop up a warning to let me know that someone's trying to connect to it. Yes. I say OK. And in just a second, it's going to deploy the application over there, and we'll show it to you on the screen. And what it's doing, it's actually copying the Android application onto the device and then starting it up. It will take a little bit of time at the beginning until the app's loaded. And on my tablet, the app just popped up. And once that's up, it's going to then come back right here. And in the same way that we saw on the web spy, I can use the spy tool to look at objects. I can click on them. And you remember there's a tree view right here. And these are all the properties. So again, it's very similar to the web spy. And that's one of the nice features of Rapise. If you're doing web testing, desktop testing, or mobile testing, it's the same technology, it's the same user interface, and the concepts are all the same. The objects you learn are different. If you remember before, they were HTML objects. These are not. These are native app objects in Android. If this was a mobile test, if this was an iPhone, it would be native iOS objects. But all the properties are shown here. And in the same way as we did before, I can then learn these objects. Now, this is the spy tool for just browsing the application. This is not the spy tool for recording. So what I'll need to do now is close this. And now I know I can connect successfully and see everything. I can go back to Rapise, and I can now use the record and learn feature. And I'm going to reconnect. And this time I'm going to be actually learning. If you notice, the learn button is still here, same as we saw before. While I'm doing that, when it's coming up, any questions? No, okay. And I got my snapshot, which is great. And I'll move this out of the way a second. And what I'll do is I'm going to do the same as before. I'm going to learn. So this time I'm going to go into the login section. So I want to learn how I click on that button. So I choose it. And one difference between mobile and web and desktop is in web and desktop I can physically click on it and it will pick up the events. Currently it can't do that. I have to actually learn the object by doing learn. So I've learned that login button. Okay, and now what I want to do is, now I've logged in, I want to actually record the next screen. So on the device, I just tap the button to move in. You get a snapshot, and now it's go to the next page. And I can go in here and learn that. So I want to learn the username, and I want to learn the password. Oh, sorry, I need to learn, not log in. Learn. So I've learned my objects for interacting with it. And I also want to go back. So I'll learn the back button too. So it can learn both the objects in the application and the system Android app objects as well. So I've learned the home button. So I've now learned all the objects I need to do testing. I can now finish. If I go back to Rapise, nothing's been recorded because I've just learned objects, but if I go to the device, these are the buttons I learned. So if I go back to my test script right here, I can now do the exact same thing I did before with the web. I can go and then use these objects. So the first thing I want to do is go to the login page. Now you notice the name text one, it does not very clear what it means. These are just logical names. They don't have to match what's in the system. What we actually do is we use this technology called the locator, and that's how it actually finds the object. And so we can change these names. They're just logical. So I want to change that to the login. Like that. That's much better. The other ones are okay. Well, this is the login button. It's like a submit button, so we'll call that submit. Okay, that's better. So now it's a bit easier for us. So our testers can work with these names that are a bit easier to understand. So what I'll do is I'm going to get the login. I want to click on that. Let's do that. Then I want to, what do we do? We log in first, then we're going to go set our username. And then I'm going to set the password. And once I've done that, I want to submit that. And after that, I'll go back to the home page. Like that. Okay. And I'll set the text as, user 1, password 123. And now I can play it back on the device. Now, unfortunately, when I play it back, you're only going to see it on the device. If it was a simulated device, it would be on the screen as well. Because it's a physical device, I'm going to see it play back on the device. You won't, unfortunately. Only when it's done, you'll see the test report. So it is actually doing it right now. Just clicking on the login. It's bringing up the test. Let's put in the username and password. And once it's done, you'll get the test report back. It all passed. And of course, you can do the same things before. You can verify things. So one of the things you can do is exactly the same as before. So let's go back to my spy tool and record and learn. On the mobile device, there's actually when you log in, it's going to display the login and password. So we can verify that. So go back to spy tool, connect. And when you go into login and password, what it will do is it actually puts the value further down. Let me show you. It puts the result right here. So I want to verify that our answer matches. So I'm going to learn this. Okay, hit finish. Now if I go back to Rapise, I'll take that. And I want to verify the result matches. So I use the same verify functions that I did before. So I got a global tester. I want to set the verify they're equal. So I go there. The message will be login password matches. And it should be user1/password123. And I'll just replace that with the value that we got from the actual object, which would be get text. And write that right there. That's going to compare what I expect to get with what I actually get. Oh, but I need to do that before I go back to the home. Like that. Okay. And now when I play it back, it'll actually do that test for us. And again, it's basically playing back on the mobile device, and Appium will be logging what's happening so you can see exactly what's happening. It's displaying on the device right now. Oh, it didn't match. So something's wrong with my test, so I don't want to go through it right now. But basically what I would do in real life is I would put a breakpoint right here, play with the debugger, and check what's going. Most likely what's happening is the label. I'm using the wrong property. It should be, instead of the get text, I should be maybe using something else. And using the spy tool, I can even do that. I could actually use the spy to click on it and actually see what's going on. The other possibility, I noticed it did it very quickly, is that I may need to wait out of sleep, because it looks like it may have tried to do the next operation, and as soon as you hit submit. So in a real situation, you typically get a breakpoint, turn on the debugger, and you can then verify. And one of the things you can do is something like actual results, like that. And then when you hit the breakpoint, you can then check what's going on. So for right now, for today's test, I don't want to spend the time doing that, but that's how you do it in a real test. When things fail, it either means there's something wrong in your application, or your test is not written correctly, or something like maybe the speed is wrong, and you can use the debugger to step through it and see exactly what's happening, and either change your test case or fix the bug if it's actually a bug. So the third piece is desktop testing. So we've done mobile, we've done web. Let me just save this to Spira. Yeah, that's fine. So that's uploaded to SpiraTeam, so that's all done. It's version controlled. The last thing is to create the new test for desktop. So I'm going to go back to my virtual machine for that. I'll turn off Appium. I'll finish with mobile. Back on my VM. I'm going to close this down. It's trying to update Firefox. And so what we'll do is we'll do a very simple application. We'll do Microsoft Calculator, which is right here. And for desktop applications, it works the same way. You do File, create new test. And for desktop, it's the same as the web. You choose basic. The only time you should use it different if it's mobile, because it has to load the device drivers and node use Appium. Okay. Okay, and so for desktop applications, you basically do the same thing as before. You do record and learn. And this time it's going to basically, instead of choosing the browser, I'm going to choose Calculator. Now for this, there's a bit more choice needed, because for a desktop application, there are more technologies you're going to use, because if it's a Windows application that's written using Windows, Win32, if it's pretty much a standard Windows application, you'll usually use automatic or generic, which is the basic library for Win32 controls. If, on the other hand, if it's a WPF application or Silverlight using a newer technology, then you may want to use the UI automation library, which is designed for more recent, more modern Microsoft Windows applications, so like WPF, .NET. Also, if it's a Java application, you'll typically want to use the Java library. And what that lets us do is it lets us connect to the Java virtual machine and use Java reflection to actually see the object. So you'll see more information. And so what you can do is if you're not sure which one to use, you can try using one. And if you find it doesn't pick up the objects, you can try using a different one. The other thing you can do, which can be very helpful, actually I'll show you this first, is the SPI tool, because there are different SPI tools. And so if I choose accessible, and I do SPI, I can do Control-G to start tracking. And I say I want to look at this button, hit Control-G. You can see this is what Rapise sees it as. It sees it as a push button. That's good. And these are all the attributes you can access. It's a push button. It can accept the focus from the operating system. These are all the various properties here. And if you right-click, you can do parent. So you see all the other buttons. There's a window. These are all the numbers of the calculator. Number 8, number 5, number 2, number 7. So you can see this is an application as an example that we can clearly test very well. If, on the other hand, it came back as a single item like that, then probably it might be a Java application or WPF, in which case you'll want to use the other technology. So that's one of the things you can use to help figure it out. And for example, if we try UI automation, we do SPI with that. Let's see what that, we do that. It looks like that's also going to work. So that would actually work as well. So you can use the other technology. So you've got a choice in this case. But if you look, a lot of the items here says not supported. So although this could work, it looks like for this particular application, UI automation, it won't be as good as the generic library. And so you can use the SPI just to see which application you're dealing with and what technologies it uses, because it's not always obvious. Sometimes an application like this, you look at it, is it Java? Is it .NET? Is it Windows 32? Is it using WPF? It's not always obvious which is the best tool to use. So you can use the SPI tool to see which one recognizes the most properties. Once you've done that, you now go back to record and learn, and now you'll know which one to use. So I'll choose calculator, and I'll choose, in this case, generic. Basic Windows 32. Hit select. And now I can either learn the objects. So if I want to learn the numbers, I could go Control and 2, learn that, 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 learn that. So I've learned all the numbers. Or I could even try and do things and Rapise will actually pick up what I'm doing. So if I want to verify, I could do 1 plus 2 equals, and I can verify the results by doing Control and 1. And I want to verify the answer is 3. Like that. Finish. And now, if you look at the calculator, I've learned all the numbers. I've also learned the add button and the equals button. And I already recorded a script that 1 plus 2 equals 3. So to start with, I can just play this right back to see if it's going to work. I'll just clear it first. Okay, that works. That's very easy. And if I wanted to make it more complicated, I could say, all right, let's try 2 plus 4. So let me comment out the 1, and I go to my 4 button. I just select that, and I drag that over here, like that. And 4 plus 2, and the answer should be 6, but let's see if it fails. So we'll try it. Hit play. Yeah, correct. All right. Very good. So it worked as I expected. And I would to fix it, I would just change this to 6 and then play it back. Now, so that's good. Now, obviously, I have calculator already running. Now, with the web browser and with the mobile, Rapise automatically knows how to launch it. It knows to launch the browser. It knows which browser it is and where it can be found. And the mobile automatically deploys it to the right library. Now, for a desktop application, by default, it won't know where the thing is. So one of the things you can do is you can actually add code in Rapise to actually launch it. So what you do is we'll find out where the calculator can be found. And it's right there. And you can use the global. Actually, I'll show you where it is right here. Global do launch. Like that. I'm not sure if it remembers those, so I'll just put that in manually. And because they're backslashes, you do need to escape them with that, because we are using JavaScript. So now if I hit play, it should hopefully launch calc. There you go. And if you wanted, you could add code at the end to also kill it as well. And that would basically start and stop the application automatically. Otherwise, it's identical to what we've seen already, which is that you have the record and learn options. You can either record your interactions, or you can basically learn the objects and code it by dragging the functions directly to the test grid. And you can also use custom functions, and there's a spy tool. So those are the common elements. There's also the debugger. So again, like we saw with web and desktop, and mobile rather, you can debug things as you go. The other things you can do with Rapise, in addition to using the different technologies, is you can also use data-driven testing. And you can use the special functions. There's one called spreadsheet, and there's one called database, and they can access data from a remote source. So if you want to play the same test multiple times, you can use that. And we actually have a sample that illustrates that functionality. So if I go back to my home page, these are my samples. I'm just going to scroll down. And I'm going to show using a spreadsheet. And this is one we've written before. This is an example of using an Excel sheet to drive the calculator. So it's the same thing we did before with the calculator, but we're now attaching to a spreadsheet and trying out different test data. And we use the spreadsheet function that's built into Rapise to do it, this one here. But also what we do is we have the data. So Rapise can actually show you the data. So if I attach my Excel sheet, I can double click on it right here. And I can also, there's my data that's going to drive my test. So it's going to run through the test several times and verify the results. And if I play that back, it's going to work the same way as before, but now it's doing data-driven testing. Very good. Now, the last thing we'll be doing then today is the ability to do web service testing. So if you're testing an application, we've tested the user interface. It could be a web, it could be mobile, but oftentimes behind the scenes there are data service calls being made through, for example, Ajax if it's a web application, or if it's a native application like a mobile app, it could be using XML or JSON web service requests to get its data. So we can also test the data behind our application. So let me go back. Actually, I'll just create a new test. So we'll call it web service test. Okay. The web service, again, leave it as the standard one. And the one thing we do differently with web service testing, you click on this web service option right here. It's going to create a new REST file that goes with it. Like that. It creates. Oh. It warns me, yeah, you can't use spaces in a web service request. Let's get rid of the spaces. Like that. Great. And it adds this web service definition. So this is the tool that lets you test out web services, and when you're happy with the results, you can then save it as an object, which appears in the object tree, just like if it was a user interface object. So we're just going to do a very simple one. Our test website actually has a web service that comes with it, for demonstration purposes. So it provides a very simple get, post, put, delete, and the simplest method of all is the one that just gets the session ID. So we're just going to use that one. So what we'll do is, this is the URL. We'll call it get session. And the command we use is literally just session. So it's literally just that. And that's going to get the current session. So I hit send. it's going to send an HTTP GET request to that URL. And let's see what's going to happen. It's probably going to fail because we haven't logged in yet. And if it does fail, it will give us the response in the header here. Yeah, it did fail. Add request. The body is access denied. So we need to add authentication. So we'll add credentials. And it's librarian. Same as we did on the website. Okay, and the other thing we do need to add, I know that we need to add what type of data do we want back. Do we want XML? Or do we want JavaScript? We'll do XML to start with. Add, send. Now it says OK, that's great. And the body will be a session ID. And we have this formatted option that will actually format your data. It recognizes it as XML and it returns it back. This is a session ID. If I want JavaScript back, it's very easy. Just go in here, change it to JSON, and now you get back as JSON. And then the last thing I want to do is save that. So save to object tree. There we go. Yeah. If I go back to my object tree, we'll now see I've got my web service, and there's my object, get session. And I can now use it in code. So the very simplest thing to do would just be to call it directly. I can do execute, like that, and that's going to execute it. If there are any parameters you want to pass, you pass them here. If there are none, you can leave it blank. And that will simply call the web service. But obviously, you may want to, if the web service fails, or you want to get data back, you may want to do certain things. So for example, let's say I want to see, are we using get or posts? Let's say I want to get a list of all the parameters, or I'm not sure what body back. So I could say, let's get the request, let's get the response headers, or I get the response headers. Like that. So let's see what data I get back, and I can then do tester.message. And that way I'm going to call the web service, get the session ID, and then I can pass it back. I also might want to override the login and password. So you can encode, update, and inspect what comes back with the web service. So as well as just executing it, which anything can do, you've also got all these functions for viewing the data you're sending and viewing the data you're getting back. And the other nice thing you can do, I'll just play this right now, is you can also have both these web service calls. You get a session ID. You can then have these same calls in the same test script as a test case that's doing some user interface testing. So a very common need would be, I want to be able to click on a button on the web page, and then I want to see what AJAX data it sends back. I could do that by having a user interface, a web test, and then have this web service call. Or maybe the reverse is the case. I want to basically send some data to the web service, and then I want to verify that the grid on the screen worked correctly. So in our example, I could actually have a web service call to add a book to the website, and then maybe after I'm done, I want to verify that the book actually was added. So I can go back to the grid page, log in, and then verify the book's there. Any questions on the web service or the desktop testing? So that's, we've got about 10 minutes left. Are there any other areas you'd like me to go through in the application? I've gone through it fairly quickly. I've shown you briefly web testing, mobile testing, and desktop testing. I show you the debugger, the spy tools, the spy for web, the spy for desktop, and the spy for mobile. There's also spy tools for Java as well, and .NET. There's also lots of configuration options in Rapise, which changes its behavior. And the other thing we do have, which I haven't mentioned, is we can also use Rapise for manual testing. So if you have a manual test case in SpiraTeam, you can play it back through Rapise here. If I want to add a manual step, I can actually write manual test cases.
Sir?
Yep. Hello?
Yeah, so what I was saying is that the team on this side are quite familiar with with what you are doing. It's just
Okay.
a matter of adapting it now into this particular solution and knowing how to do the same things we're doing with other tools with Rapise.
Okay.
We did have an issue on this end, however, with the audio going on and off. So we may need to just go over what you've recorded.
Okay. Yes.
Especially with the mobile, with the mobile testing, because that was the main area of interest.
Okay. What I can do is I'm going to share this video with you afterwards, so please, hopefully the audio track is complete. We also did record a webinar, a public webinar, a few weeks ago for mobile specifically, and I can send you a link to that as well. And that actually has a webcam set up, so you can actually see the device at the same time.
Okay. I think that would be quite helpful.
Yeah, I didn't do it this time because it's a bit complicated to set up and point at the device. But for that public webinar, I did that already, so I can show you that one. So I'll send you a link to this recording and to the mobile webinar.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so I can download this. When you said the link, will it be something that we have to stream or something I can download?
It's available both options.
Okay, because I think I prefer to download and have it maybe on our local server.
Yeah, I understand, right, with the connectivity.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you download links for both, actually. Let me do that.
Okay.
That would be great. So any other questions?
No questions from this end.
Okay, great. So what I'll do is I'll give you the download links for both.
From Nigeria.
He's on mute, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Any questions? Femi? Oh, okay.
Okay, so I guess unless you have anything else you want to add.
That was it for today. Once you've got up and running, if you have any specific questions, we can also do a follow-up session where you can, if there's specific areas that you're having trouble with or any questions, we could do like one where you could present it and we can help you, something like that as well.
Oh yes, yeah, like a reverse roles type of thing. See how how much coverage we have of it.
Exactly.
Okay. We present to you. Okay, I guess that's it from our end.
Great.
All right, thanks a lot.
Was it helpful? Was it okay? I mean, apart from the audio track, was it disappearing and coming back, was it okay in terms of what I covered?
Yeah, we pretty much got the gist of everything.
Okay, good.
But as I was saying, I think we'll make that available and have everyone just run through it again so that everyone is on the same page. And at that point, if we have any questions, then we'll come back to you.
Okay, that would be perfect.
But I think it covered. We were able to see. Most of what we're hoping the tool can cover.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. And the other thing I would ask, as you do that, as you do go through the tool, please send us feedback. If there's areas that you think it's lacking, if there's functionality that's missing, or areas that you think it could be improved, please let us know also, because our team is working on it, and so the more feedback we get, we can make sure we're putting the effort in the right places.
Okay, understood.
That's always helpful. So thanks to everyone for attending, and have a great rest of the day or evening if you're in Nigeria or Ghana, and we look forward to working with you more in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Remy.